Governor, we were expecting a Volcker, we've got a Yellen. What do you want your next reading to be? How should we read the RBI?
To your Volcker, Yellen, etc. How about Raghuram Rajan?
When Raghuram Rajan entered the Reserve Bank in 2013, he was already a star. The maverick who had predicted the global financial crisis of 2008.
Santa Claus is what Latha called me earlier. You want to call me a hawk? I don't know. I don't go by these things. My name is Raghuram Rajan and I do what I do.
But after a successful 3 years when he institutionalized inflation targeting, stabilized the rupee and started a massive bank cleanup, he left abruptly. In 3 years against the usual 5 years that governors serve. What's the story behind the exit? Was he on board with demonetization? Was he opposed to it? Was that the reason why he was allowed to go? After a year-long silence, Rajan speaks out. Raghuram Rajan returns and he is speaking to us at CNBC TV18 after the publication of his collection of speeches with a very interesting introduction. Well, first, what royalty do I get for this?
I know you asked the question which prompted this statement. I have to say that was one of the tougher moments in my press life when I had to respond to your question. Do you think you are Yellen or Volcker? And I said, I should have started saying, my name is Rajan, Raghuram Rajan.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what
My name is Rajan.
Yeah, which is what I thought I was getting into. And then I said, Raghuram Rajan. And I knew I was in front of national TV and I had to finish the sentence somehow.
Okay, but you've just written a familiar face asked me. If you had written Latha or CNBC, I think I could have rightfully claimed royalty.
Yeah, you could have, which is why I avoided it. Which is why I avoided it.
Okay, well...
don't want to share my ill-gotten gains with you.
Okay, well, let me first come to the other part of the introduction on demonetization, where, you have said that you advise the government on the minuses. Now, my question is that if in spite of it the government asked you to go ahead, what would you have done on November 8th or November 7th?
Okay, so first let me just explain something. The book itself is of course edited speeches, but linked to commentary on how this all fits together. So hopefully in the process I give a sense of the entire sort of stint at the RBI as well as so it's more than just the introduction. Now in the introduction, the one place where I felt it was important to talk about advice that I had given the government on a specific issue was on an issue on which Parliament has already asked questions about my involvement. And because there was some sense that there was an answer out there, I wanted to make sure it was the right one. And that is why I explained that the RBI had in fact offered an opinion to the government, and that the opinion basically felt that there were alternative approaches that could be tried. Now, you asked what I would have done. That's a hypothetical question.
Absolutely.
And it's easy to play whatever is the preferred direction on the answer. Let me refer you to my guru on central banking. Actually, I have 3 or 4 gurus in India on that, but one of them is Dr. Y.V. Reddy. And I think he gave an answer which is well known, that he'd go to hospital and then he'd figure out. So that's one possible answer. If you disagree with a decision of such momentous thing, and that's one possibility of what.
But you have also said, and now I'm not able to put my paper, get that paper, that the role of the bureaucrat is to advise, point out the pluses and minuses, but ultimately the sovereign is answerable to the people, and therefore I won't be a fifth column. So
you cannot be a fifth column, but if you're doing something which is entirely against your grain and you think it will do a lot of damage, the one ultimate weapon you have is to leave the job. I think that's what Dr. Reddy meant when he said he would have resigned.
Just to be fair, the sovereign is not blaming anyone. Throughout, the sovereign has taken the blame and the praise for this action. And therefore, the Reserve Bank, as an agency of the government, has to implement.
No, absolutely. All I'm saying is that as a civil servant, I mean, if I'm not saying the Reserve Bank governor is a civil servant, but any agent of the government cannot stand there and oppose the government's policy, because these are the elected representatives of the people. They have an ability to say, I will not be part of this. Because I do not believe this is the appropriate thing. And that's what Dr. Reddy, I think, was hinting at.
Fair point, yeah. And that's why he calls his book Advice and Dissent, because he believes that you have a duty to dissent. But do you think that we are still paying the price for demonetization? I mean, growth has come in lower than what most people expected. Is this because of demon?
Well, I think there are three impediments to growth, and it's hard to disentangle the contribution of each. One, of course, has been the bank balance sheets and the slowdown in credit, as also the reason that created that, which is the leverage on the corporate balance sheets, as well as the exposure corporates have to different projects, some of which are stalled. So that's an entire package. I think Arvind Subramanian calls it the twin balance sheet problem. I think that has been a big dampener, and as I pointed out, it started in 2014 itself. The second, I think, effect has been demonetization, and I think undoubtedly it has had some effect, because we were growing at between 7.5% and 8% in the first quarter of 2016, and then we have slowed considerably since then. And then the third and we've slowed when the world economy has taken off. You've seen other countries grow stronger. Look at Brazil, look at Russia, and of course look at China, which is looking also a little better than it was then. And of course the West is doing very well. The third element has been anticipation of GST. Now again, GST I think in the longer run will be very beneficial. It's a very important positive move by the government. But in the short run, it has created some uncertainty, and we are paying some price for that. Disentangling these three and talking precisely is difficult, especially because, as a number of observers have pointed out, demonetization, some of the effects will not be measured because it fell disproportionately on the informal sector.
Yeah, but are you also surprised that we have sprung back fairly quickly? It was maybe at best a 2-quarter. Thereafter, it's only a trickle. Did this overall impact and the aftermath surprise you?
First, I don't know that we've measured it entirely, and it may have to await revisions to GDP to get the full sense of how much has happened in the measurable portion. Second, undoubtedly, as cash comes back into the system, you remonetize the system. The question is, who has disappeared because they didn't have buffers to sustain the period of demonetization? Again, that is something we will know only over time. It may be small, it may be large. Again, we don't know exactly how much, because those guys aren't going to come back. Now, even if they don't come back, there's still sort of formal sector people who can enter that space. So, it's not, again, a total loss. But I would guess that until we can parse all these out, it is very hard to say this is the net effect.
Yeah, and that may be difficult as well, because GST and other developments have come. But one last word on growth. There have been other measures like linking the Aadhaar to PAN card and the direct benefit transfer going, and of course GST itself. So how do you gauge growth in a slightly medium to long term? Do you think the government has got everything else right, perhaps except this piece?
Well, I think it's important. The best sense of when we're back to sustainable growth is when private investment picks up.
Yes.
Until that happens, until the private sector is not willing to dip into its pocket and put assets on the ground, we have to be worried that we have not done enough. Now, is it the stalled projects? Is it, some of the infrastructure needs to be accelerated? Where is the east-west? Where is the eastern corridor, the western corridor? All those things, we need to actually make them happen. I think highways has been a success story.
Yes.
Power sector, I'm worried, because the DISCOMs have brought down their losses, but how much of that is just because of lower interest rates? And how much have they done on bringing down the line losses? How much have they done on raising tariffs to appropriate levels? unless that is done, that is an addition to the fiscal burden that the state governments have, but also we're not able to distribute power when in a period when we have excess capacity of power. Why are there blackouts still in the country? We shouldn't have blackouts. So there is something fundamental that needs to happen in the power sector. That's number two. Number three, so twin balance sheet power sector. Third issue is the education sector. Until we improve the quality of our education, we are setting in place the problems for the future. So at the primary, the ASAR results are frightening. And we have to make sure that our kids actually learn and don't become liabilities of the future. Okay. If we can do all this, I have no doubt that, so long as you keep the environment, the reforms process going, and there are some successes, the bankruptcy code, GST, there's no reason why we shouldn't go back to 9-10% growth.
You think that your lack of buy-in on demonetization was the reason why you were not asked to continue?
Look, I don't speculate on that. I had a 3-year term. It ended. I went back. I did not
Normally, governors have 5-year terms.
Yeah,
that's
but I did not spurn an offer.
The IIT Delhi speech, where your whole topic was on tolerance at a time when it was the hot debate in the country. You regret that speech?
Absolutely proud of it.